Hello? When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? I never asked my mother what I would be. Given the circumstances, she wouldn't have known anyway. She didn't know Spanish, so she couldn't have said, que sera, sera. And it wasn't like her to say something like, what will be, will be. She was a Midwestern farm girl. She just never would have said anything like that. But when I was just a little girl, one of my fondest memories was listening to the AM radio at night. Because that's all we had back then in those long ago days. And the station I liked to listen to had basically Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett. I mean, there were second raters too, like Vic Damone and Andy Williams, people like that, Dean Martin. You know, they were all right, but they didn't, even as a little girl, I knew there was something different between those voices and Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, especially like I Left My Heart in San Francisco. That just totally sent me. I mean, there are literally cornfields across the street from where I grew up. But I would dream about those. I could almost see like chandeliers in the fog in the hills. And the little cable cars going halfway to the stars. I used to think about that as I lay in bed listening to the radio. And then Frank Sinatra with My Way. Great song. I loved that. And then there was another one that wasn't so popular. It was called That's Life. And it was so dark, but as a little girl, I thought it was the funniest thing I had ever heard. Like the last line is something like, after a whole song filled with regret and failure and everything, the last line is something like, if everything doesn't come together by next July, I'm going to roll myself up in a big ball and die. And I just thought that was really funny stuff. But my favorite, and I don't know why, the one that struck me the most was the Frank Sinatra song, Summer Wind. And it took me to a place I didn't know, I had never visited, I didn't know. I just like that, the bittersweet, the golden sands, you know, like the summer wind came blowing in from across the sea, two sweethearts and the summer wind. It was bittersweet, a song of love and loss. And it touched me so deeply, but in ways that I couldn't articulate or say. I didn't know the words, but I knew the mood. And that was something nice that I remember from my childhood. Now one of the reasons my mother wouldn't have known, even if she had tried to know what had become of me, because I was an oddball and I had a difficult time in life. I worked in restaurants. Now, Anthony Bourdain, he's the food writer, right? Yeah. Well, he talks about how misfits often end up in the kitchen, on the line, working in the kitchen, and that was what happened to me. I didn't fit in, and that's where I went. I spent literally decades, you know, waitress, bartender, cook, all that stuff. And it's a hard life. And things, when I got to my 50s, my middle 50s, you know, things were really kind of taking a turn to the downward. I dropped a few rungs on the ladder of the food service business. And I ended up, I wasn't a waitress anymore, making $100 a night, or a bartender making sometimes more. I had become a server in a high school cafeteria. Oh. Hairnet, name tag. You know, when you wear a name tag, it's like, and the horrible shoes and the smock and everything, and it was just, and you know, you don't get any tips. Those high school kids do not tip. And it just I had gone a little crazy, I know. At least that's what they tell me. And the way it manifested itself. And this is going to sound strange, but everything I say is true. It meant that it was the meatloaf that done it, in a word. It was the meatloaf that did it. Every Thursday for millions of years, meatloaf has been served. And I had noticed over these, a smaller portion of a million years, something had been itching in my brain. I'd noticed that there was some pattern that I had been trying to match but couldn't, and it was just getting to me. And then one night, I was laying in bed watching a Japanese horror movie. Monster movie, not horror. Godzilla. Old one. And I suddenly copped it. The skin, Godzilla's skin, lumpy, brown, matte, glossy, kind of moving around, gelatinous, was exactly the same as the finish on the meatloaf. And there are some things, and this is one of them, that it's better not to know. Because once you know something like that, you can't forget it, even if you wish to. And I tried to hide it. I would go to work and try to pretend that I didn't know. But see, the meatloaf are very sophisticated. They've got their own pattern matching going on, and so they're scanning the environment, and they notice that Dorothy is pointedly not noticing us, and so they got me. They busted me. And then the game starts. And although it's not a game, to them it is, but to their victims not. They started with sarcastic remarks. Nice hairnet, Dorothy. It's not like they don't know. It's a fucking law that I have to wear a hairnet, right? Oh, beautiful shoes, like the gravy spots. You know, they just start in on you, wearing you down. Because, see, the other thing, they're so sophisticated, they've watched us for a long time. They know that I'm not going to go to the manager and say, Kurt, the meatloaf are making filthy remarks to me. And I want it stopped because they know I'll be in involuntary treatment in just a couple of hours. So what they've done is there's a classical predator behavior. They've separated me from the herd. I'm out there all by myself. I can't ask my friends and co-workers for help. I'm by myself, and they're running me to the ground, you know? Sarcastic remarks, filthy remarks, awful. And then they up the game, again, not a game to me, with the threatening gestures. Very subtle. Only I notice it. And then end game, they think. They attack me personally. They attack me personally, my body, they attack. And I defend myself. Anybody would do that. And what do I get for defending my life? I get fired. I get fired. And it's like I spend the afternoon in the manager's office and the police come and everything. It's like they agree if I just leave, everything will be okay. And so I walk out the back door of that high school cafeteria. And the thing is, it should have been a very, very, very bad day. I mean, my prospects weren't good. I'm an old waitress, and I've been fired from my high school server job. I'm not going to get the bartender job, the waitress job. So it's like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. But my soul is rejoicing. My soul doesn't have to pay the rent or put food on the table, but you guys understand that. I'm sure almost everybody does. But I'm just uplifted. It's a wonderful day. And I walk around for a while, and then I decide to celebrate by going to my favorite bar, the Dewdrop Dead Inn. For a martini, a celebratory drink. And I walk in the bar, I go sit down at the bar, and I notice right away that it's quite different. It's really quiet. It's like dead quiet. Nobody is saying anything except the guy I'm sitting next to, big tall guy, old, tall, got a really old jacket. And he's very, very unhappy. And he's like, kind of like clenching his fists and grinding his jaw and saying, Cuddy, I want my drink. He's like an unhappy customer. But the bartender, my friend, is just standing there, catatonic, just staring off into space, as is everybody else in the bar. It's completely dead. But this guy's grinding his teeth, and I want a drink. And so I'm a server. I'm an old waitress, an old bartender. I know what to do. I just put my hand on his arm and say, listen, man. Can't you see there's something wrong with him? Just chill out, all right? I'll get you a drink. But the thing is, when I put my hand on that guy's arm, he just turned so fast, like, just to see who had done that. He just looked at me. And I'm getting up, going around the bar, and he's still just staring at me, just looking at me intently. And I'm not sure what he's thinking. I say, it's okay, I'm a regular. It's all right, no problem, I'll get you the drink. But he's staring at me. So I get the bottle, I get a couple of glasses, because the thing is, somehow that day has brought me to the state of mind, like when the power goes out, and everybody comes out on the porches, and they say hi to people they've never seen before, everybody's kind of in solidarity. It was like that. And so I got another second glass, and I poured myself a scotch. I wasn't going to make myself a martini at this point. And I pour him a scotch, and I clink glasses, and he just sits there, he's just looking at me. It's like, man, you were on and on about wanting this drink, and it's like, come on. But he's not moving. And so I kind of have to, like an immigrant, I take him through the steps. It's like, pick up the glass. Come on. Come on. Clink, clink. And finally he starts to pick it up. He picks up his glass very slowly. This guy's a slow-moving guy. Picks it and we clink. And it's like, there, that was hard, right? Cheers. Yeah, join the club. And so we're friends now. Something has melted between us, and we start chatting, although it's really a one-sided chat. He's a really good listener. And I had a lot to talk about, the whole crazy day at the cafeteria, and the meatloaf attacking me and stuff. And I asked him what his name was, and he says, Todd. And then he asked me what my name is. And the thing is, I have a name tag on, so it's like I know the guy's not like super sharp, but as a matter of fact, nobody that comes into the Drop Dead Inn is, so it's to be expected. But I take the name tag off as kind of an act of closure, like I've left my job. And it's like I finally take the name tag off, I push it across the counter to him, and say, my name's Dorothy. I'm very pleased to meet you. And we continue our discussion about the day's events, at least I do. And at some point he just perks up, like a dog. Like a dog has heard a whistle, that you can't hear. He perks up and he just gets up and walks out. He doesn't say goodbye, he doesn't say thank you for the drink, nice seeing you, anything. He just walks out of the bar. Now later on I learned about him that human social skills were to him basically the same thing as when we see ants move their antenna around like that, and we know it means something, but we're not sure what, and we don't really care. That's what he thought about human interactions, like hellos, goodbyes, how you doing, stuff like that. So he just walks out of the bar, and the place is completely dead. I don't really think about it too much, because I'm not in that mode. The place is so quiet, I just instinctively grab my coat, my bag, and I follow this guy, my friend Todd, out the door. He sees me following, but he doesn't do anything about it. He doesn't seem angry or confused, just curious. And I follow him down the street for a while. He stops in front of a restaurant. Nice place, big glass windows, candles at the table, people inside eating dinner. Nice place. And he walks into the place. Now this guy's timing was so bad, it was epically bad timing, because when he opened the door to this restaurant, this guy inside who's eating dinner suddenly stands up and clutches his chest and falls over backward onto the floor. Heart attack, it looks like to me. Odd timing, to be sure. But then my new friend Todd just walks up to the guy, stands right next to him, and looks down at him. And it seems so wrong to me, so callous, so cold. And he's just standing there. Everybody in the restaurant's kind of frozen. And I don't know why. I was strictly on instinct. Everything was so crazy. I don't know why I did this, but I kneeled down next to the guy, put my hand on his chest where his hand was, and I grabbed his hand just to try to help. But I noticed what was going on was this guy was looking at Todd, and Todd was looking at him. Their eyes are locked. Something is going on between these two. I can't figure it out, but I'm not really trying. And I'm just feeling what this guy's feeling a little bit. The pain, the suffering, the embarrassment, the shame of dying in a restaurant. And he's thinking, oh, these poor people, I'm interrupting their dinner. And then something really bizarre happens. And this poor dying fellow looks at me. He turns his gaze from Todd to me. And our eyes are locked. And whatever was going on between him and Todd is now going on between him and me. And he's dying, of course. And now I really feel what he's feeling. The remorse, the sense that he hasn't told the people he loves that he loves them enough. He hasn't taken care of his will, just like random thoughts. Just near the end, The biggest remorse of all those other sadnesses that he had were dwarfed by this sense of remorse. It was, I guess it was like a moment of truth where he really saw, albeit too late, what his life actually was. He saw it. He saw the big picture. He saw his life as infinitesimal but unbelievably precious and unique. It was his life. And the remorse, the great remorse that this guy had was that he didn't know that until just now. And I'm holding his hand and he's feeling that, and then the lights go out. He's gone. The business is done. I don't know how long I stood there kneeling next to this guy, holding his hand. I don't know. But at some point an EMT had come in and kind of roughly pushes me aside. Everybody in the restaurant stares at me. I look at them, but they look away when I look at them. Todd's gone. I don't know where. So I get out of the restaurant. Seems like the right thing to do. I open the door and out on the street, the dark street outside, Todd is leaning up against the wall, kind of like a juvenile delinquent posture, waiting for me to come out. And I look at him because I do not know what has happened. And we both, it's funny in a certain way, we both ask each other at exactly the same time, who are you? And he laughs at the question because, like, you haven't figured that out? And of course, I mean, it was like a hard day. It was like, I got fired, there's a meeting, it was like the whole deal. But it's like, of course, my new friend Todd is also Death himself, going about his rounds, just doing a work order there in the restaurant. But he's genuinely puzzled about me. He goes, the question is, who are you? I said, I'm just Dorothy. I'm just an old waitress. I just followed you. I don't know anything. And so we stood there at an impasse. Because I was still thinking about that moment of truth. Because I saw what that guy had seen. I saw the big picture. So we stood there out there in the street, just kind of like loggerheads, not saying anything, not knowing what to do. Then the EMT guys come out with the gurney, the poor guy, his poor wife, into the ambulance, and off they go. Out on the dark streets alone, Todd and I are. And we stand there for quite a while, not really knowing what to do. And then he says, out of the blue, well, Dorothy, whatever you are, why don't we go to Denny's? I'll buy you a patty melt. It seemed as sensible as anything, since I was starving. I mean, what had happened might put a lot of people off their feet, but I was very hungry, and patty melt sounded okay. So we went. We walked to the Denny's, and it makes sense, because Denny's is open all the time, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, just like Todd's business, and he appreciates that. So we get to the Denny's, and they know oddballs. The late night shifted to Denny's, but we were especially odd, I guess, still crackling a little bit. The hostess, and I always want to say stewardess, I don't know why, but maybe in this instance it might have been more appropriate since we're, I don't know. Anyway, she takes us way to the back booth. Way to the back booth. Like it takes a while to get there, and you can see the floor kind of curve down into the distance, and it's kind of dark back there. And she drops the menus and said, "Christine's your server." And I hate that name, I just have to tell you. It's like corporate speak, right? Server, because it's gender neutral and they save some money, I guess. But she's our waitress, so she's going to come. And I'm still thinking about the moment of truth and Todd, what's going on. And Todd is obviously confused too, so we just sit there. The waitress comes, and I order a couple of coffees, and I say 2 patty melts, and Todd goes, no. And I pour that. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. You're not going to order a patty melt, but I do. And we sit there for a while longer. And the food comes, and it's really, I mean, a lot of you people, I imagine, would turn your nose up at the patty melt. But it's a really, if it's done right, it's a fantastic mix of textures and flavors. You got your grilled rye bread and butter, not the orange coconut oil that they use sometimes. And slow. No, a lot of cooks hurry the food. They go too fast. Slow grill. It's got your Swiss cheese, your grilled onions, a hamburger, sometimes Russian dressing, whatever the hell that is. But back in the old days, it was like French, Russian, Italian dressing. That's like that's. Anyway, it was sometimes on there, but it's a good sandwich. And I was enjoying my first bite, and along with the French fry and the coleslaw, like a tripartite bite, everything at once. And the patty melt is a very grounding meal. I was really, all of a sudden, I was like, okay, now I can face this situation. And I said, I finally have come up with a question for Todd, like, what the hell is going on? That's my basic question. What the hell is going on? And I asked him, roar, 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 roar. And he goes, eat your sandwich. And I said, roar, roar. And he goes, eat your sandwich. You know, he's a very calming guy. Just eat your sandwich. And so I did, bite after bite. And the thing is, he was watching me like a hawk. Well, it wasn't like a hawk, the way he watched me. It was more like a dog. You know the way a dog watches somebody eat? It's like with total fascination. Like, okay, the bite is on the fork. It goes to a person's mouth. Back and forth. They're intent, total concentration on the food. Because that food is a religion to dogs. And they watch us chewing. And we chew really well compared to a dog. For a dog, it's like, swallow, get some more. Swallow, get some more. And they see us chewing, and it's like, I don't quite get that. But what's even more, it's like what makes it really a transcendent experience for the dogs, even though they don't understand that kind of word, is they see us enjoying the food. They see our eyes kind of roll back in our head, and we go, oh. Or we go even more crazy to dogs when we share it. It's like, you gotta taste this. And so they're watching the whole event. And that's the way Todd watched. And it's like, haven't you ever watched somebody eat a meal before? You know, after millions and millions of years, he says, I really never paid attention before. It's pretty fascinating. So eventually I come to the end of the meal. I wipe up the last of the coleslaw juice with the corner of the sandwich, and I'm like, I push the plate away. I get a refill on the coffee, I stir the creamer and the sugar in, get it just the way I want. I take a sip. Now it's time for my question, right? What the hell is going on? And he holds up his hands. This is like one of his postures. He goes, just wait. You know, I'll tell you, I promise, but I must know who you are. Indulge me. Please, just tell me. I said, I told you, I'm just an old waitress. He goes, just tell me everything. You mean like my life story? He goes, yeah. I was like, I've never really been that interested before. You know, he's heard millions of stories, especially the end stories, like why my demise should be delayed and why I got a very special case here and I'm not ready. The dishes, in fact, I haven't done the dishes. You know, those kind of stories really are boring him, but he wanted to hear my life story. And as a woman, you may know that it's kind of hard sometimes to get a man's attention for more than 4 or 5 minutes. And this was unique. This guy was a great listener. He wanted to hear every word. In fact, he was almost obnoxious in his interest in the way that he would constantly interrupt. Because he didn't have a lot of context. There would be words I would use and topical references I would say, and he'd say, Tom, well, what is that? Tennis shoes. You're playing tennis? And, or you know, like, what's in dog food? Just questions out of the blue. Just, why do you have pets? Why do you put cars in garages? And the more mundane, the more fascinating it was to him. And so finally I said, just stop. You know, just stop with the questions. Just let me. It was like watching a movie with somebody who's constantly saying, why did they do that? What are they doing? Why did he say that? And so you just watch the movie. Just settle down or make a note. Turn your placemat over and make a list of questions. We'll get to it when I get to the end of the story. You're really interrupting my flow. And I'm not gonna, I mean, I gave my life story, hour after hour after hour of my life, so I'm not gonna, don't worry, I'm not gonna tell you that. And finally, I get to close to what's real time, really, because I'm embellishing. It's like the battle with the meatloaf I referred to before. I've embellished a little bit. It's turned from like a couple of meatloaf attacking me to a whole squadron. And it's, I mean, I don't know what a squadron is, but it sounds impressive. And the thing is, the part of this life story I've been telling you, I've been acting it out a little bit. I've been getting into it. Having an appreciative audience brings that out. And so I've been acting it out a little bit in the aisle. But for this, I jump up on the table. I'm up on the table. Todd's sitting down there, and I'm acting out the epic battle of Dorothy versus the meatloaf, and I've got a spatula in one hand and a slotted stainless steel spoon in the other, and they're coming at me fast and furious, and I'm knocking them down and everything. I'm covered with gravy. It's epic and gruesome and everything. And he says, "What is a spatula?" And I say, "Shut up." It's like, come on. But he says, "I can't understand. I won't." So it's like, okay, a spatula. And it's like a half an hour into like tempered steel and what rivets are and the history of the food service business and shit like that. It's finally, I get to the end and it's like, okay, dude dropped in and where I walked into my favorite bar and I saw you, Todd. And I saw how tall you were, Todd. And I saw how much you needed a new jacket, Todd. And stuff like that. And now here we are. Here we are. And the thing is, I was still up on the table when I said that. And it was just like somebody had written this story. Right when I got to that point, the sun came up and started flooding through the front window of the Denny's. And it was like kind of smoky in there from all the fry action. And it was like golden honey. It turned the whole light in the place, just yellow gold. And I saw from on high the waitresses going hither and yon down the aisles and pouring coffee, and the humanity coming in the early morning, the truck drivers and the work crews sitting down, and the people in hangovers getting coffee, and the sun was just shining off of everything, off their hair and their name tags. Claudette was the new waitress because there had been a shift change. Pouring coffee and the steam, sun hitting the steam and hitting the white hats of the cooks in the kitchen and the stainless steel where they've been polishing it all night. And the wheel with the tickets on it spinning around going bing, bing, bing with the light. It was just like I was on acid. And what was even more strange about the whole thing was that I hadn't really known that, I mean, I hadn't thought about it consciously, but I did have my doubts that I was still in real time. Like maybe I was in eternity, right? And here I'm sitting at death at the booth, and maybe time isn't really moving on. I mean, it was like a fucking long story I told, so it could have been eternity. But no, the sun came up and reassured me that time was still happening. This planet was still spinning and the sun was still appearing to rise in the east. It was okay. And the waitresses, surrogate mothers going around pouring coffee for people and dispensing love and joy to the degree that they can because that's their job, besides delivering the food. And I was just amazed. It was so ordinary, but it was so amazing, and I'm just like, oh, Todd, isn't it fantastic? And he said, well, it's all right. It's okay, but get down from there. You're lightheaded. You need some breakfast. Get down. So I got down. And we called Claudia. Everyone's like, I got some more coffee, cream and sugar, stir it just the way I like it. I ordered some breakfast. Now, I haven't told you guys that we spent in that booth, in that Denny's, 7 weeks, 49 days. We stayed in that booth. I left the booth, obviously, to go do my, but I didn't leave the Denny's. It sounds weird, and it was. It was very crazy. But I ordered the breakfast. I ordered a Denver omelet, hash browns, rye toast, butter, not the orange coconut oil. You gotta ask for that stuff. Coffee refill, small OJ. And that's what I ordered almost every morning. I'm a creature of habit. But sometimes I'd see the picture, the French toast picture on the menu. That was good. But see, I'm in the business. I know it's a fucking photograph. And I know they don't know how to cook the French toast. It's really a delicate operation. But I order it sometimes anyway, and it's a disappointment. All it is like a vehicle for butter and syrup. So it could be cardboard or paper, it doesn't matter. But I'd order that and I'd fall asleep. Carb sickness. And I go back to Yeah, Denver omelet. I get my breakfast, I'm not so lightheaded, I get the coffee, and it's like, now, Todd, I believe it's your turn. But before he could go on, this little man walks up to the table. A mean looking little man walks up to the table, obviously knows Todd. Now this is one of the minions. I found out later. This is one of Todd's little helpers, like Santa's elves. Todd's got his minions. And the minion has got a couple of papers he wants Todd to sign. Hello, boss. He's kind of frightened, It's like approaching the boss. It's like, but we just wondered, me and the guys and the gals, we're just wondering, we covered for you last night since you were off. And we're just wondering if anything new was going on. And the entire time he's quizzing Todd about what's going on, his eyes are like shifting to me. And it's like each look is like, daggers and rocket ships and flamethrowers, really a lot of hatred. Like, who is this? Who is this? And Todd's going over the papers, checking and writing, notes and stuff like that. And this little minion looks at me, he leans in, he looks at me and he goes, You must be Dorothy. And Todd goes, well, I guess you've already heard. Yeah, that is Dorothy. And just, by the way, there is something new going on. Dorothy, it looks like Dorothy is going to be working with us in the future. And we're talking about that right now, chatting about it, just seeing how things are going to work out. And if there's not anything else, why don't you guys just check in at 4 or 5 days? And when he said that, the minion almost had a heart attack. They don't have hearts, but it was really... It was like 4 or 5 days, because I didn't realize this until later, but I could kind of see it happening in this minion, was that when Todd had gone into a Denny's with a young girl, I'm a lot younger than Todd, inappropriately sometimes, but the minions just went crazy. It's like, what is going on? They thought I was like Yoko Ono. It's like, she's going to ruin everything. Nothing had ever happened. They had no precedent or case law or rules or anything. It was like completely new, and they don't deal with change well at all. It's like, this is new. This old waitress. That's what they called me. They called me the old fucking waitress. They were so pissed off. So they sent this one minion named Clem. So we're going to the Denny's and find out what's going on. Gotta find out what's going on. And so that's what his mission was, to go in and find out, is that you must be Dorothy. He couldn't really hold himself back. And he left the table. It was like 4 or 5 days. What the fuck? And I'm sitting there at the table, and I have to go to the bathroom. I've been talking all night, drinking coffee all night. It's like, excuse me, Todd. I go to the bathroom. I do my business. I still have gravy on my face, really. Flecks of gravy. I get cleaned up as best I can. And the thing is that what that minion Clement said to me, you must be Dorothy, really resonated. The thing is, I didn't hear it as a statement of fact or conjecture or something like that. I heard it as a command. You must be Dorothy. And so I looked in the mirror and it's like, well, what is a Dorothy? The thing is, when he said that, it was like being knighted somehow. I'm trying to think of a better analogy, but I can't. But the thing is, it was like my whole life had been somewhat unbalanced. I had never really felt solid. It's like a table with a short leg. And when he said, you must be Dorothy, it was like all doubt was removed. Okay, I must be Dorothy, whatever that is. And so I had a sense of solidity that I'd never had before, really. And when I walked back to the table, I think Todd noticed it. His eyes tracked me all the way back, and I sat down, and he looked at me and goes, what? What happened? I said, nothing. I said, what? What happened? Nothing. He said, what? I said, nothing. I'll tell you later. I mean, it was really a sensitive moment. I was like, just let me have it for a minute. Besides, I do believe it's your turn to tell me something. Like, what the hell is going on? Work with you? I mean, this was news to me. In fact, when I sat down, I was actually, hours and hours before, I thought, is this going to be like a job interview or a blind date or something much, much worse? All three, I guess. But I said, come on, you have to tell me what's going on. And he goes, well, I don't know. He said, I just don't know. I don't know who you are, where you came from, what's going on, anything. I'm way more surprised than you are. And as far as working with us, well, you followed me. You followed me. And then you walked right in on the middle of one of my jobs. You practically stepped on my feet. I said, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I was just following. He goes, don't apologize. I'm delighted. I'm delighted, whoever you are. But yeah, you seem to have a knack for it. And you're still sitting here. Most people wouldn't be. So yeah, I think maybe you might be working with us in the future. So I said, well, okay, if you can't tell me any more than that, just start telling me something. Tell me your life story. Tell me everything. And so he did. Started way at the beginning, millions of years. It was, sometimes I had trouble keeping awake for it, but I'd make doodles of sugar on the table. Days passed. And finally we got into this conversation. Just two people getting to know each other. I actually sang that. I sang a lot of songs to him. And he really liked it, like getting to know you, getting to know all about you. We had fun singing that together sometimes. And the death business. I said, what's up with that? Tell me more. And he said, well, it's really very simple. It's not that complicated. There's a gate between the two worlds. The living and the dead. I manage the gate. I get the work orders. It's not up to us. And as time went by, he slowly started going from me to us, including me into this. And it's not up to us. Just carry out the work order. And there's a membrane. It's a gate or a membrane. It's all, the words don't really suffice. But some things go through the membrane and some things don't. And with those things that don't, that's what feels like such pain to people. Like they're like demons are ripping their most powerful possessions, their wonderful body and their memories and their life is being ripped from them terribly. But it's actually angelic work, he says. Rarely recognized as such, of course, but that's what it is. That's what we do. So far. We talked about death and life. He wanted to know more about life. He'd never really experienced it. The Dennings people were great. Like I said, we were there for a long time. They started, they were it was a little rough for them at first, but then they got used to us and we really started getting into the family thing. They liked us. We liked them. Todd started warming up to people. Started playing peekaboo with the kids. He actually, he had this great voice, and sometimes it would get out of control and people would literally wet their pants. But he learned to modulate that voice in such a way. He actually started practice on this. He can modulate that deep voice of his so that it would vibrate your internal organs. And it really it didn't tickle, but it was interesting. And it felt weird, like in a good way. And he got so good at it that he could say, he could say a certain word like artichoke, and your liver would move over a little bit. And it was like people would line up for this stuff. It's like, do it to me, come on, do it to me. And it was like constant. It would be like long lines. And it was like that's all we were doing. And I finally had, what I turned into was like the wet blanket, the person that said no more. I had to manage the situation. That's all that was going on. It's like, so I said, okay, only weekends, only 12 to 3, graveyard, it's got to be graveyard shift, 12 to 3. and only 2 people for a family. You guys decide amongst yourself who is going to be in. So we just can't do this all the time. People were coming from other restaurants. They were hearing about what's going on. It's like, we don't want to be a carnival act. Come on. But I mean, it's like I'm fighting not only against the people enjoying the service, but Todd, he's never enjoyed anything so much. He's having a great time. And and I started to learn the ropes about death and dying and that stuff. I mean, I had to put this together, but we came up with, based on what, I'm going to shorten it here, but based on all the talks we had, I came up with 3 general principles. One was, we needed a friendlier face for death. And whenever I said that, Todd looks at me meaningfully, like, friendlier face for death? No, I didn't see myself in that position at all. And then the second thing was, we needed, the fear, they say the thing about death is a fear of it. And he seems such a ghastly character, people are so afraid of him. But that fear is what, it's not just that it makes the death process uncomfortable. That it's actually the fear of death is underneath all of our other fears. The fear of being a fool, the fear of losing our husband or wife, the fear of getting sick, the fear of losing our job, the fear of getting a flat tire. All those things are manifestations of the fear of death. So if we could just get a friendlier face for death so that people weren't so fucking afraid of it all the time, we'd have richer lives. I mean, it's nice to have a better death. And what lies beyond, who knows? But having that richer life, we started talking a lot about that stuff. And then second, general principles would be, we need upgrades and options. We need choices, silver, platinum, gold. We need clubs, people enjoying. They got their card, get it stamped and punched and stuff like that. Specials, 2-for-1 specials. We were thinking about it all. The specials, I'm not so sure. We'll give it a try maybe, but I don't think people are going to flock. Never mind. But then we got, and this is a corollary of the first, is we need outreach, we need education, we need not marketing. He said, no, whatever marketing is, I don't want it. So I said, okay, outreach, education. Because people got to know what's going on. And it was a big surprise to me. This was a huge surprise to me, was that nobody knows, there was no announcement that anything had changed. There's no announcement. It's like, nobody tells anybody shit. Just nothing happened. So, we talked a lot about that stuff. We came up with, we had fun with slogans even. Because I said, businesses need a slogan, a short, pithy phrase to get people's attention. And we had a contest where, my favorite was like a billboard over the freeway where there's all kinds of traffic and people are backed up. So it would say, if you were dead, you'd be home now. And then an ad in the business magazines, where, and right next to the Viagra and the Cialis and stuff like that. If death, think outside the pine box. And the that ESPN voice, death, it's what's happening. Or slightly nicer, death, try it, you have to. And so that was one of our contests, and there was another thing I did during that time is I wrote some scripts for movies, like The Shopping Trip was one where shopping trip, pushing your cart around and around in circles is like a stand-in for human life, and people throw their shit in the cart, and they go around in circles, and Blue Light Specials, and Towers of Joy, and Dawn, and Life, and that's it. That's what we do. We push our carts around and put stuff in them, and then there's a checkout line. Nobody wants to check out, but that's what we have to do. We push the cart up there, and they start taking all the stuff out, putting it back on the shelves, and go, that's my stuff. And they go, sorry. And then what's even worse is that the security guards with the mirrored sunglasses are coming up towards you, and they look like they're angry at you, and you're going to have to suffer. And then while they're coming at you, they start to morph into these like gigantic 8-foot tall crows, or maybe, I'm not sure, maybe vultures. But they're big and they're black and they're scary and they've got like round welder's goggles, the old-fashioned kind, Elizabethan ruffs. It's really bizarre, and you're thinking, bizarre. And under their big wings, they've got arms with tattoos on them, and those arms are starting to pull, like tear you limb from limb. And like throw your arm into this agricultural hopper where it's ground into pink mush and turned into, splashed right into pellets, and they run down a little channel and fall into a plastic bag, and then throw your head in there and you're going, wait a second, and then they don't care what you say. It makes a big grinding noise, and they pour pellets in the bag, and that's humans. So they fill up the bag with the humans, and they put it on a pallet, and they drive it away down the hall. It's like, that's your fucking life and death, right? It's like, and it's like I'm writing this script, and I'm reading it to Todd, and he goes, again with this. It's like, it's not that bad. You're going to scare people. It's like, I think it's really cool. And he goes, you're going to scare people. It's like, but to continue on the analogy, like when people get the education, when they get the outreach, when they get the big picture, when they're hip to what's going on, that moment of truth, when they see what their life really is or can be, then that's what it's all about. Then you of course everybody has to push their cart around in circles. That's human life, right? Well, you see analogy. But this time you just put in what you need. You don't fill it with crap. And you're nice to people. You take care of other people. You're helpful. All that stuff. All that good stuff. Because you're hip to the big picture. You're not lost looking at towers of joy. And dawn. All the other things they sell. But, so in this Denny, which is by now, this is weeks into the Denny's, it's now like a Mexican funeral. Like kids running up into the aisles, screaming and laughing, and there's all we need is a band, a three-piece band in the corner, playing music. Make a full-on Mexican funeral, but it's really a happy, joyous affair. Death is there. I'm there with death. Something is happening in the place. They don't really know what, but they know something is happening. So I'm blocking out this shopping trip thing. I'm actually pretending to push a cart around and around the aisles of the Denny, and I'm taking a piece of toast off their plate, and people are giving me tips like, well, why don't you do this? It's like a group effort. It's really fun. While I'm doing this, I happen to see Todd has gotten up from his booth and he's talking to people. It's like you're not supposed to do that. He's been on his best behavior. He's really softening up, but anything could happen. You don't know what's going to happen with it. It's like dangerous. I'm starting to freak out, but he's having so much fun. He's talking to a big booth. There's like 8 people, family, kids, mom and dad, and he's standing there telling them the slogans. And he's also like telling jokes. They're my jokes. But he's having a really good time, and the people are it's really interesting what's going on with these people. They're terrified. They're terrified, not because he's being scary or anything, just because he's so intense. And he's death, right? And they're just like, their internal organs are just all over the place. But at the same time, he's telling these jokes, and the slogans, and they're laughing. It's like mirth is erupting through the terror. And I just think, that's cool. But I still like to break it up because I don't know what it's like. And so, he's having such a good time, I don't know what to do. I finally go, I grab him, and it's like, I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry, but it's a school night, we have to go. And I sit him down, it's like, God, and he's like on crack. He's already talking about how he went, because people laughed at him. They have not laughed at him, they laughed at his jokes. He goes, I want to get on Conan O'Brien and David Letterman. And it's like, those are my jokes, man, come on. But I quash it, and I don't know why. He said, you're just jealous. And I'm afraid he might be right. It's like I didn't want to share him with people. I didn't want to share him. When he was out there, making all those people laugh, it's just like, it was just him and me in the booth. So I'm really not proud of that, but I think that's what it was. But the thing is, when he came back and sat down, and everything, it's all giddy and bubbly and excited. The kids are still running up and down the aisle, screaming and laughing, and he's doing a little bit of peekaboo with the kids. What I noticed was that his cheeks had gotten a little pink. And when I put my hand on his to tell him, no, you're not going on David Letterman, his hand was slightly warm to the touch. And I didn't think about it. I probably didn't want to. But that's really when I first noticed what was going on at that point. The next morning, he got a refill in his coffee, and then I noticed another thing. When he tasted it, he was savoring his coffee. You know, his eyes rolled back a little bit. He went, oh, he smelled it. I noticed that too, but still I resisted processing it. And then at lunch, we'd been talking, and then I was eating my sandwich and French dip this time for lunch. And I'm eating my sandwich. And I stop to say something, and he looks at me, and he looks at my sandwich, and he says, can I have a bite of your sandwich? And we both laughed. But it was like this whole picture of implications, craziness. We didn't know what to do. I mean, it's like Todd was becoming a living man. There in the booth next to me, mortal. For millions of years he'd existed and seen human life and seen death, not really understanding the world of the living or the dead, just that thing in between. That was his job. It was very simple, and that's all he really understood. But now he's becoming a living man. And while we embraced it and enjoyed it, I mean, it opened a whole new phase in our relationship, in our friendship, in our love, actually. And we talked about many, many things. I mean, a lot about, my life story came up again because he had a new appreciation for the details. It's like, now I understand what you're talking about. And we talked about, so many things that are just like personal and private. They don't have any place here. Maybe I'll go on Oprah, like some of those people. You remember I told you where he's talking to the people eating dinner, and he's telling them the slogans and the jokes. Well, those people, now they wrote books. They went on Oprah. Those were life-changing events for some of those people. But we just spent a lot of time in the booth, and I sang to him. I sang so many songs. He really liked that. It was his favorite thing, When I was just a little girl. That's why he liked that one too. He thought it was very funny. And the implications, that which comes up must go down, and that which comes up very fast, we found out, must go down equally fast. And so, when, like in the middle of the 7th week, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, he just didn't feel good. He wasn't hungry anymore. He never had that much of an appetite, but that dropped off. It was just the coffee then. He didn't feel good. That was new to him. Feeling good or bad was new to him. And the thing about him was that he didn't have much of a life in terms of length. But he got more out of that life, that brief life, than anybody I ever knew. Ever. The coffee, the French fries, the singing, the kids, everything. And we knew what was coming, but we put off talking about it. We didn't have a good reason to put off talking about it. We just wanted to put it off. We weren't ready. I didn't want to talk about it ever, but that's how things are. And he started feeling more poorly and having bad nights, and he couldn't sleep. He never slept very much, but he was in pain. But the thing about him was that even the pain was a gift to him. It was something he was feeling. It was real. I wouldn't say he enjoyed it, but it was real to him, all of it. And Friday night was very bad. I didn't know what to do. And it's obvious what's going to happen, and it's like we both knew. And he didn't want to start the conversation. The only way I could start the conversation was just to burst into tears. Saturday afternoon. I said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And by that I meant like many things, like what am I going to do without you? Personally, my best and only friend. You know, like Pris says to Sebastian in Blade Runner, you're our best and only friend. He was really the only real friend I had ever had. And then like the business. It was our business now. What am I going to do? And he says, you'll be fine. First of all, you need to do your business with me, right? Promise me. Promise me that you'll do it for me. You've learned the ropes, right? You know it. Promise me. And I said, okay. I said, but what am I going to do? He goes, we'll meet again. That's a song that I sang for him. He said, we'll meet again. Everything's going to be fine. The minions love you. It's going to be okay. I didn't think so. And then Sunday morning, Saturday night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, he left. He sang to me, we'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when. I sang a summer wind to him, you know. 2 sweethearts and the summer wind. So bittersweet. And then I did my job. I got the work order. And we locked eyes, and he said, and I to this day do not know whether this was a joke on his part or whether it was just, he said, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. Just like Steve Jobs did. And it's like, come on, man. But then he was gone. And when he was gone, he was a special character. So when he was gone, he was really gone. There was just a little bit of blue-gray powder on the seat where he'd been and where his hands had been on the table. And his old leather wallet, a big leather wallet, old-fashioned, filled with, had a few credit cards in it, and a few $100s in cash, and some really old coins, like collector's items, and some keys. And my name tag, he'd kept it. Hello, my name is Dorothy. It was still in there. And so I just sat there in that dark booth. The people at the Denny's had learned that, like the first week I was there, I started hallucinating. I wasn't really sleeping enough. And they learned in the middle of the night, just leave Dorothy alone, let her get some rest. And so I just sat there thinking about where I was now. And Todd was gone. I sipped my coffee. And then it started getting light. It rained all night, but it started clearing up, and it started getting light gray on the horizon. And Sunday morning, the people, early risers, the ministers and the truck drivers and the newspaper people coming into the Denny's with some of them hangovers, coffee, breakfast, surrogate mothers doing their job. And Claudette eventually came over and said, "Hey, where's Todd? Okay?" Because they'd seen something. And I said, "He's okay. He's fine." And without even asking, she goes to pour me some more coffee, and I put my hand over my cup and say, "Claudette, just the check, please." And she brought it. And I finished off my coffee and got my stuff, my leather wallet with the keys and the coins and a couple of credit cards, and I put my name tag on because I must be Dorothy. And I walked out of that Denny's into I hadn't been outside. Fresh air. It had been raining all night, so it was like the whole world had been power washed. It was fantastic. It was one of those beautiful mornings where sometimes when you're hungover, it's like each little bit of gum wrapper in the street glistens. It was like that. And some people might have expected something like a rainbow. But I know Todd would have thought that was extremely gauche. So it was just a beautiful morning. And I could feel him. He was right. I could feel his presence. But mostly, I wanted to go home and take a shower. Change my clothes. And so I went to the bus stop. And I sat and waited for one of those Sunday morning buses. It was about a 45-minute wait. Now the Minions had gotten the signal. They get the wire. They know what's going on. The Minions, we'd gotten off to a rocky start, like I said, but we started really to work together nicely. And thank God they didn't blame me for what had happened. But I'm sitting on the bus stop waiting, and then 4 or 5 Minions and a couple more show up. And we're all just sitting there for a while, Nobody really has anything to say. This is a big change. Finally, Clem, we became great friends. He was one of my main assistants now. Clem said, "What are we going to do, Dorothy?" And I said, "We'll figure it out. That's all. We don't know. We'll figure it out. It's going to be okay." I said, "First, I got to go home and take a shower." So we met later, and they said, "You want to meet at the Denny's?" And I said, "Absolutely not. We meet at Chuck E. Cheese's, but not the Denny's. I just need a rest from that space." So the Minions and I got together and came up with first of all, it's like we just had kind of a wake for death. And we decided we got to move on. And we did. And that's like the second phase of the story, like a sequel or something. But we started working together really closely, the Minions and I. First of all, we realized they were fascinated by what had happened to Todd. The mortality thing. They didn't want to, live and then die so quickly. But they were fascinated by that possibility. And the thing is, when Todd told me that he didn't know what was going on, what he tried to explain to me was that there is no plan. There is no plan. There's no authority saying how things are going to be. The universe suddenly took a left turn, 90 degrees, and here we are. We're just doing it now. So me and the Minions are just figuring it out as we go. The new business. And part of that is what I call the path to humanity. The Minions, I'm starting to get into junior colleges, and they're getting their social skills up. Mostly, when Minions are confronted by a human, they just say, "Fuck you." They're mean, and their meanness toward humans comes from this. is that they've seen us humans, lifetime after lifetime, millions of years, or something like that. And they see us with these precious lives of ours. And they see us just ignore it, waste it, toss it away, be oblivious to the gift that we've been given. And they hate us for it. Like a poor kid in the alley seeing a rich kid just toss half of a can of caviar away or something. But much, much, much worse than that. And so now, so the plan is that we're all working together. The living, now Todd's over there, we're talk every day. And he's very hard to understand. It's like really a different world over there, like inside out. Language doesn't really cover it, but we're learning it. We're learning it, put it together. Some of the minions are planning on going over to the other side and working with Todd to continue that cooperation. They're learning not to hate so humans so much, like we're all in it together. We can make a better universe. Who knows? So that's about it. The only thing I know right now is that this story I'm telling is just beginning. And that we'll meet again some sunny day. That's it. Thanks very much. I never know what to do after the show.
Well, how about some drinks?
Okay.
And you can talk to folks.
Okay.
And you can just, hang out.